WAOK is a ministry for you. And what he does on WAOK is a service to all of us because he brings information. And we are not ignorant when we listen to Derrick Bozeman's show. But if you don't listen to Derrick and you only rely on CNN, Fox, and all of those, you are ignorant. And that's their purpose. We have to understand that. And I know that at this ministry, at this church, you all do understand what we are up against. Deacon Doug Evans, I almost wasn't able to continue with the libation that he gave to all of us because, well, anytime you mention my dad's name, then I'm done. I'm like, oh, well, it's over for me. It's been a long time since I've been at an event where we sang Lift Every Voice and Sing. Because black folk don't, I don't think we think that we need to lift the voice anymore. We certainly are the most silent, docile people that I've seen here in the United States for quite some time. However, Sister Ebony Marie, there she is, the 2 words. And she didn't have to say what those 2 words were. We all knew what those 2 words were. And then, of course, Lucy. Lucy is my mom's friend. Lucy is my friend, too. And, she's a friend of this ministry because you can always count on Lucy to tell you what the contradictions are. And we need that. We need to be checked. And then, of course, I taught myself how to do videos, which reminds me that I'm supposed to be doing this. So, not necessarily that I can make a video, but you never know. So you need to have, I see a lot of people who are recording, but we need to be able to tell our own story. Right. Yeah. And if we don't make a record of it, then we can't know what actually happened, and then we have to rely on them other folks who are paid to misdirect and misinform and neutralize our leaders. Now, those are not my words. Those are the words of the FBI in the counterintelligence program. So we need to understand what we're up against. So now, I didn't know what I was going to talk about, and almost still don't. But for those of you who listened to Bozeman's show yesterday, you know that I'm working on my PhD, because the pastor said that too. And I'm at the Antioch University, which is based in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And I have to tell you, well, you already know, if they will accept me, then this is an institution of academic freedom. And there they have allowed me to pursue my own personal interests, because their philosophy is that the research belongs to the student. And so my interest is in the counterintelligence program, and they allowed me to study the counterintelligence program. So I have read the Senator Frank Church reports. That's thousands of pages. I've read maybe half of it. I have read the COINTELPRO documents, which are available on the internet. Senator Frank Church reports on intelligence activities against U.S. citizens, available on the internet. The internet is a powerful tool, and we have to use that tool to provide us knowledge so that we can plan and strategize on our freedom. And so not only did they allow me to study the COINTELPRO program, but then they told me, one professor who happens to actually live right here in Atlanta, and she told me, get outside of where you're comfortable. So my intention was to study the COINTELPRO against the Black Panther Party, because of course we talked about, Deacon talked about political prisoners. And we still have those people who put their bodies on the line for us, and they're still in prison, and we haven't taken care of our business. There's a whole lot of business we haven't taken care of. But, so, that was where I was, but then when she told me, go outside of where you're comfortable, I said, okay, well, let me look at the American Indian movement, and let me look at the Puerto Rican independence movement. And there, I was able to find that there is documentation of COINTELPRO against the American Indian movement and against the Puerto Rican independence movement. The second thing, probably you could say a subset of counterintelligence program that I studied was targeted assassination, because that is another very, very strong interest of mine. So I was able to pursue targeted assassination as a byproduct of the counterintelligence program. Because one of the things that I learned by working with members of the Black Panther Party and my participation and leadership, quite frankly, in the Congressional Black Caucus on the Durban World Conference Against Racism, was that there were dozens of Black Panther Party members who were murdered as a result of official U.S. government policy to destroy, disrupt, neutralize members of the Black Panther Party. And then I found out the unsolved, at that time it was unsolved, but recently they did solve it, the murder of Anime Pictou Akwash, who was a leader, a woman leader of the American Indian movement. She was killed, her body was found dismembered. They didn't know who had done it, but she had been targeted by COINTELPRO, and her name is in those COINTELPRO documents. You can find all of this in addition to looking on the internet. You can find this in a book, two books actually, by Ward Churchill. One is the COINTELPRO Papers. The other one is Agents of Repression, that focuses, that specializes on COINTELPRO against the Black nationalist leaders and against the American Indian movement. And targeted assassination. So, in the spirit of that kind of study, then my interest just went someplace else. And I guess you would expect that I would be studying Africa or something like that, or some, domestic movement, but my attention was captured by the leadership of Hugo Chavez. And I happened to go to Venezuela several times, but I went there during the morning of his passing. I went there as a regular, ordinary person without informing the Venezuelan government. And I was there, and you saw, if you tuned in any at all, and you saw those massive crowds, I was in the middle of that. Wow. And that was when I decided that my dissertation had to be on Hugo Chavez, someone who inspired so much love. And my PhD, the field is leadership and change. And who embodied that more than Hugo Chavez? And so therein began a new journey for me. I don't even speak Spanish, but I'm gonna, they got these new things out where you can teach yourself languages, and right now I've just been using Google Translate. Right. I try to do as much as I can written instead of verbally or orally, and then I just paste whole documents, cut and paste or retype whole documents into Google Translate so I can get an idea of what they're trying to communicate. And so anyway, enough with that. That's where I am. But this morning, I actually trying to understand a little bit about the 2002 coup against Hugo Chavez, which was supported by the United States, I chanced upon a interview of John Perkins on the internet, and so I was listening to that this morning. Are you all familiar with John Perkins? John Perkins wrote the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Okay? And Perkins, as his job, would go into countries and he would try to bribe the leadership of those countries. It seems that he specialized in Latin American countries. And if the leader was not bribable, then the leader was killed. The country was destabilized, and then the leader was killed. And he recounts over and over and over again instances in which he personally was involved in the destabilizing of countries, and then in the untimely, unfortunate, usually mysterious, untraceable death of the leader. This is targeted assassination. Now, I don't want to jump ahead of myself. Okay, so not very many people had familiarity in this room with John Perkins. A little bit more when I said Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You kind of remember a little bit. So let me ask you this. How many people are familiar with the TV show Scandal? Okay, see, everybody knows about Scandal. That should also be a lesson to us. Because we are employing, the United States government is employing individuals to kill other people in other parts of the world so they will not have leadership, and we're looking at Scandal. So now, the good thing about that is that I look at Scandal too. But I don't look at, here's my thing on television. I don't look at television. And that's because I know that the purpose of television is to make me dumb. But because I don't know even how I got started. I guess maybe because there was such a huge buzz. I go to Hulu. And I dictate what I'm going to look at when I'm going to look at it. So I went to Hulu to check out Scandal. And I said, this is just like Washington. And interestingly, I don't know if it has any significance or not, but episode number 13 was, for me, a very decisive episode. So I played it. I was up all night last night. I was supposed to be doing my schoolwork because I have chapter 4 of my 5-chapter dissertation that's due on Monday. So instead, I'm looking at Scandal so I can talk to y'all. Everything involves choices, involves sacrifices. Okay, so episode 13, and what came to my mind was the real scandal about Scandal. Okay, I've written the dialogue. Let me see if I can go through this rather quickly because I really don't want to take much time. But 6 minutes in, Liv erupts into laughter. And she says, they're all murderers. Reston, Sally, Fitz, they're all murderers. She's laughing. She said, the presidential debate, it's literally murderers' row. No matter who gets elected, they're all murderers. And so I guess I don't have to provide details because you all are familiar with Scandal about how Fitz blew the plane out of the air and the vice president murdered her son. You all know about that, so I don't have to go back into that. So Liv and the president's chief of staff have a rare, unguarded laugh with each other. Then Liv goes on to observe the fresh start, the clean race, the chance we promised Fitz to run clean is gone. And then she tells him, you took that from him the moment you sold your husband to Douglas, which is the vice president's husband. And she goes on. Now, for me, let me skip, because I want to make this as brief as possible. I call this moment in the 1 hour show decision point number 1. Decision point number 1 is Cyrus begs Liv not to tell the president. Liv says, I can't do this again. I'm going to walk into the light and feel the sun on my face, Cyrus. You're on your own. And Liv walks out and slams the door behind her. Now, decision point number 1. Is Liv right or wrong for not going along with Cyrus's plea to not tell the president and cover up what he has done to help the vice president cover up the murder of her husband? Decision point number 2 is Liv talking to Jake. And she says, Liv says, I want to pretend for one night to be a normal person who doesn't live in this world or know these things. I could kind of relate to that because I know a lot about what the United States government has done. And Jake says to Liv, every morning when I walk into my office at B316, or 613, which one is it? I'm realizing all over again that I'm command and that it all falls on me. The kind of stuff that I'm in charge of, the decisions I have to make, the knowledge I have, the secrets I keep. I'm through the looking glass. And what's on the other side? Someday I really do just want to be the guy who sells paper. Liv says to Jake, how did we end up here? What is this place? And Jake says to Liv, we could run. We could just disappear. We could run. You have just to say the word. And then he asks, run away with me, Liv. Save me. That's decision point number 2. Is Jake right or wrong to want to escape? Decision point number 3 is the vice president to her media consultant, Leo. I confessed, Leo, and remember when they brought the pastor in and the pastor walked out of the room stunned. She then goes on to tell her consultant that she must confess to the world so the Lord will hear me. She says the Lord doesn't hear her anymore. And the only way the Lord is going to hear her again is for her to do her penance. And that is that she's got to confess that she killed her husband. Is the vice president right or wrong? That's decision point number 3. Decision point number 4 is Daniel, the U.S. attorney. He wants to indict the vice president for murder. This implicates the president's chief of staff and the president's wife in the cover-up. Should Daniel, the U.S. attorney, prosecute or not? That's decision point number 4. Decision point number 5 occurs when Cyrus is talking to Jake, and Cyrus is asking Jake to kill the vice president. Wow. And Cyrus tells Jake, you really have no idea what you're talking about, do you? Because Jake says no. The fate of the republic may not hinge on me or Fitz or Millie, but it does hinge on the American people